Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Aggressively Average. I'm Smug,
And I'm Frost.
and today's episode is so I have a lot of yapping to do about it, and there's gonna be a lot of definitions that I throw in there here and there, but it's gonna be resources in 40k and how they can be better.
Yeah, sometimes like when you're trying to like mine iron, it can kind of get annoying. Because I know you're a big dwarf player, so
Oh
that's what I'm
boy.
assuming this is going to be about, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this is
Big,
all an episode about GRG,
big.
baby.
Yeah, this is actually an episode on capitalistic structures of the different factions of 40k.
Yeah. No. So, Um, yeah, we're gonna talk about the resources and how we could make certain factions' resources better. This is mainly going to be about sisters because I went on a huge rant about sisters and then I wrote the ideas down and clarified it for y'all. So, one of the first things we have to do. All right, definitions. First things first. In Warhammer 40k, all resources are abilities, but I am trying to clarify and split them up so that way there is a difference because Oath of Moments is a resource and an ability because it's limited in how you're able to use it, but it's still something that you're able to do consistently. If you want just a resource with no ability, then that would be like
Command
I don't.
points.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. And then if you are looking for something that is like the peak of this is a resource that gives you abilities. Like there's no better way to put it than an orc wall.
There's a when I was actually thinking, because I think when you say resources, when you talk about like competitive 40k, like you always say like, oh, you want to get rid of, like, one of the things I feel like, this is just a little bit of tactics now, but one of the things I feel like people maybe don't realize is that every unit on a table is also a resource. But when we're talking about that, it's like just it gives you options to do stuff. But when we're talking about resources here, this is in response. This is just for some reference, or I guess background. Well, we already gave background information, but for this video is basically a response, and this idea came from after the nerf. So after the recent data slate, what was it? The January
No, it
data
was
slate.
December. It was
I guess,
December.
yeah. There's Grotmus detachment, or the detachments, and then the balanced data slate that came out. Sisters took a big nerf to the Oath of or Bringers of Flame. Sorry.
Bringers of Flame and
And
just Miracle Dice in general.
yeah, the Miracle Dice generation was severely hurt, and this is also at the same time that the Eldar was released, or not. The Eldar Codex came out last week for time frame of this recording,
Yeah.
and we had known since around that time that they were going to lose the Fate Dice as an army rule, and it was going to be completely reworked. So that's where this whole conversation started, because we were talking about, okay, so what is actually like something they should do with miracle dice, because the whole argument, at least for, I mean, I know we've talked about this, and I've talked about this with many people, is that in a game of 40k, right, you
Mm.
have like, it's a game of chance at the end. I mean, it is, I mean, there's obviously like, there is skill involved 100%, but
You skew the odds in your favor, yada yada.
yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, there's still chances. Even if you're hitting on twos, re-rolling ones, like there's a chance you just miss like your 5 attacks, you roll 5 ones, and you roll another 4 ones, right?
Nothing brings me more joy than watching an old Eldar reroll from the index detachment before they got their codex from a 1 into a 1. Nothing gave me more joy.
Dude, it's a feels bad for the opponent, but for the person doing it. But the point is that and I think you probably agree with me, is that I don't actually think the miracle dice mechanic in itself is like oppressive, right? But to me, I feel that any ability, and this might be a personal thing. Yeah, I know you agree with me that I don't think it's oppressive. I think the amount you could generate was oppressive. But as a concept, right, that you have a game completely based on rolling dice, being able to like eliminate parts of the roll
Mm-hmm.
is just unhealthy. And you could argue
Mm-hmm.
devastating wounds do that, but like you still have to hit, you still have to wound,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you had situations in sisters, especially like even pre-patch, but with the Triumph of St. Catherine, for example, you could basically, if you hit one die, right, and you had ways to like re-roll for other things, ability, auras, and whatnot, you could essentially, like, if you got a hit, you could guarantee a wound without any rolls, depending on what you did earlier with an immolator or a castigator, and depending on the target if they have an invuln. As long as you hit one shot with like a Melta or a las cannon or whatever, you could guarantee the wound and guarantee max damage, and your opponent could literally do nothing about it, and they just
Mm-hmm.
have to like take it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we say that's sort of something with like devastating wounds, but again, at least you have to like roll the hit, roll the wound, and then if you don't roll the 6, it's like, whatever. You can't automatically like flip it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the whole issue. And I think as a game where all of your decisions are predicated upon the idea of chance, being able to remove chance from the equation like kind of fundamentally breaks the whole thing. But
Literally, the
anyways,
first rule I wrote down for like rewriting any resource rule is it cannot like replace the value of a roll.
I
If you
actually
wanted
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
to if you wanted to give like anti-vehicle or anti-infantry as an ability, that's one thing, but straight up just erasing rolling dice,
Like, I even don't really I don't think it's as bad, but even the Farseer's ability to, like, flip, like, wound rolls to, like, 6s in the Eldar detachment, I don't love it.
yeah.
I mean, it's whatever because it's, like, once I mean, I think Valerian and a couple other, like, characters have, like, the ability to, like, flip a save to, like, a 6 or something like that, and, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's whatever because you have, like, an I would prefer it if it was just, like, you can reduce the save down to 0 damage, like,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like I don't know. That's actually, I mean, it does functionally the same thing, but not really because with modifiers, like if
Mm-hmm.
you have Melta, like you're still taking the 2 damage for the Melta or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So something else to kind of identify with resources versus abilities is CSM's Dark Pacts is an ability that turns your models into a literal resource. Like it's that's where it gets complicated. I'm only saying it so that way it's said and that I'm not getting a bunch of comments asking, "What about this?" CSM, as far as I'm aware of, I did a little bit of thinking. CSM is the most complicated like setting up resources in that sense where your models and your wound count literally becomes a resource. And then another example of
Now, I
I was
mean,
yes, I was literally gonna say Tau and spotters. I have it written down. Did you check my notes?
no, absolutely not.
Oh, that was right after you stole my thunder.
I
Okay,
absolutely did not.
you
God,
stole my thunder. You stole my okay. It's fine. It's fine. Yes,
Thunderhammer.
bailiff, whack his pee pee. Um, so Tau is a perfect example of your units being resources, and I'm not talking about actions. I'm talking in a pure vacuum. You can use this unit to make this other unit even better, and like that kind of stuff is awesome. And then a bad example of resources was the old GSC rule of get lucky.
Yeah, it's I mean, well, if we're talking about the old rule where like battle line just came back for free,
I'm
that was
I'm
also a
talking the
bad
4
rule.
up 5 up only.
Yeah, that is I mean I sort of get it. Like if you're talking about like a 4 like to roll a command point on like a 4 plus like whatever, but like if you're being priced at like a point of like oh yes, you're going to come back
Mm-hmm.
and then there's like not a like there's a pretty significant chance that you don't
You
come
don't?
back.
Yeah.
I mean, Angron is priced like that because he can, but like reliably, like maybe he comes back once. I don't think he does. Like reliably, I don't think he does once a game.
If he goes down first turn and he gets a first turn charge, he's probably already made up his points.
I mean, at the very least, you're gonna have a massive distraction piece.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think he. I know. In the before they changed the like favorite of corn.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the enhancement, but it was allowed you to like re-roll all the dice.
Mm-hmm. Every
Um,
turn, so that way you could
yeah,
just fish for Angron.
Yeah, and it was like that was pretty reliable to get him back, but like now it's pretty unreliable to get him back. I think you get him
Mm-hmm.
back maybe like once a game, but he has to die pretty early on,
Mm-hmm.
I think. But anyways, we're getting off topic. But yeah,
Yes.
so using units as resources to like make other units better, that's cool. And I actually think it's good design of like an army. I was actually pretty impressed with what they did with Tau this edition. And I
Mm-hmm.
was talking to a couple of my friends who play Tau, and I play a lot of Tau in my local meta. It's very unfortunate, to be honest with you. They're all cool people, but my god, like it's like the worst. Like it's just like, oh dude, I can't wait to play 3 games of Tau as my practice for this like upcoming RTT.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like no, they're all good people, but oh man, it's like god, dude, my meta is weird. I don't know where you are, but like it's basically like everyone plays Xenos, and it's not like popular Xenos. It's like Drukari
Mm-hmm.
and Tau, and then like you got like the 3 random orc players, and then you
Yep.
have like the 1 Dark Angels player, and then me. And it's like, what is wrong with everyone here?
Yeah, dude, my local meta, it's insane. We have like 30 Tau players. None of them play me because, well, I shoot better than them.
They get
But
offended.
they do get offended. It's just like my local meta is a lot more centered on rule of cool.
That's the way it should be.
Most of the
But
people in my area are like just chillers. There's like the 12 people that I play against consistently that are like let's go tourneys all the time, and then there's like the other 50 where it's just like I just want to beer and roll dice.
you got to shout out Robert Birmingham. I mean, I've talked to him like, I mean, I've never played him actually, funny enough. Like, I know
Mm,
he's in my thing, but I've literally never played him. Like, talk to him every tournament they have here because he's a nice guy. He's really, really cool guy, but he got
mm-hmm.
like 30th at LVO. And so we actually have some pretty decent players where I'm at. But anyways, we're getting off topic.
Back
But
to topic.
I like what they did with Tau, as in they made it interesting with the with using their units as like resources and whatever. But going back to resources,
So let's go to sisters, like the script says. And sisters are weird because I think they almost had it perfect. I think the sisters miracle dice was almost perfect. And I have been inspired by the Eldar Codex in a way where the Eldar Codex makes it so that way one of the values of the dice can be used to replace the cost for that stratagem that matches it. I think what you should do with Miracle Dice instead is if you roll a 1, you can automatically advance an additional 2 inches or something. Instead of it being whatever you roll is a like I roll a 6, now I can use a 6 anywhere. It's I rolled a 2, I can only use this 2 for movement. I can only use this 2 for advancing. Like it's specific to what you roll.
or you can even
Which,
just make it like just a movement buff in general, so it's like they don't even need
well,
to advance or
the
whatever.
thing on that I was about to get into is, and then every single sister sheet has an ability, and then an ability that can be buffed by expending a miracle dice. Very similar to Morinval and the Zephyrim right now, just as they are. Because Morinval right now, if you use it, you get extra shots and extra attacks. And if you kill something, you get it back. And I think it's the Zephyrim get lethal or sustained, and if you use Miracle Dice, you get both. And it's like, awesome, that's great. I think that they should delve into that and make it so that way every single sheet has an ability that they can use to make Miracle Dice better. Retributors, for example, they're 125 points. Nobody knows why, because they're just dominions but worst. And the way that you can literally fix it is make it so that way they reroll ones naturally, which they already do, so you're not breaking the meta already. And if you spend a miracle dice, you reroll all wounds.
Or it's like you can even do stuff like I even thought, and maybe I went like a little. So I have a, and I honestly don't know what this. I don't know what your notes say, but this was like my thought with Miracle Dice because I know that people like. I mean, it'd have to be like a combination of the two. I feel like having the sisters' abilities basically being able to be manipulated or they get extra stuff by using miracle dice. I think that that's a good I think that that's a good idea, and I think that that would be something that would be very unique to the faction because I mean that's like that's their whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that they definitely need to have the other aspect of it where it's like, oh, if you rolled this 3 or whatever, 4, whatever, like you get to do stuff with it, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
I would almost say that I think it would be really cool. And this is where you start getting into my philosophy of like what Warhammer should be. Like the Gramis detachments, I love. The Librarius Conclave, I absolutely adore because it is one of the more complicated and even the tactical brigade, but like any of those detachments that require like a lot of thought and effort, and Angelic Inheritors is another perfect example. I love those detachments where you have to like really come up with like a weirdo way of playing, but that like suits your specific play style.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be like even I think this goes a little bit too complicated maybe, but if it were me, I would basically have it for like every single phase. I mean or I'd have like, command phase and then maybe movement phase, like shooting phase and whatever. As that basically like you have like a D3, so you have to roll the dice
Mm-hmm.
still. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that would be kind of a still fun mechanic to have because I
Yes.
think if you get rid of the dice rolling, you just become pain tokens from
That
Drakari.
that's that's what I'm saying. Like you still roll the dice to see what you can use it for.
Yeah. And like I think it would be cool if like every phase had like maybe it could even have 2 abilities. It could have 3 abilities if you're trying to get really complicated here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say each phase has 2 abilities where it's like, oh, this unit becomes like leadership 5 or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you like know that they have to take a battle shock and you can like spend a miracle dice to like make a unit leadership 5 because then it's like you're not auto passing it. They still have to roll it. Their just odds are a lot better or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the shooting phase, you could like give a unit like I don't know, +1 like AP or like ignore cover or something like that, or like sustained hits and shooting, and then like lethal hits in melee. If it's like a 1 through 3, it's like you can do just stuff with it. Like I think it would be fun to roll a dice and then basically have it on a D3 system instead of a D6 system, and then
Okay.
basically be like, oh, on a D3, it's like okay, this unit can reroll. You mentioned retributors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they already reroll wound rolls of 1. If you could be like, okay, on a 1 to 2 on a D or on a 1 on a D3 or 1 to 2 on a D6, it's like this unit now shooting can reroll hit rolls of 1. It's like, oh, okay, now retributors like hit on 3s, right? They don't hit on 4s.
Yeah.
So like a unit hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s is like almost 80% hit rate. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like that unit becomes good for that. And then instead of like, then it's like they get to reroll their 1s to wound as well. And then on like a 3 to 4, it's like they do something different. Like this unit ignores cover, or like this unit and then like a 5 to 6, like this unit ignores like modifiers to hit or something if you're trying to shoot it stealth or smoke. And I don't know, I think there's like things that you can do that still require rolling dice, and then it gives you options like later.
Yeah. Yeah. I can agree with that. Like I the thing that hurts the most about the Sisters Army is that new detachment. It looks delectable, but it's just because they killed how you get miracle dice instead of just rewriting miracle dice. Now it's unrunnable. Like as far as I'm aware, the only way you can genuinely run Sisters right now is the penitent detachment because you're just you full send one unit at a time. You just send like Repentia 30 inches across the board for a charge, and then that's that.
Can you wait, so what is the new detachment? I'm not super familiar with the sisters detachment.
So you can it's a sheet specific one for Paragon Warsuits, Sacrosants, which are the Shield Sisters, and then just
Mm.
straight Battle Line Sisters. You expend a single Miracle Dice, and you can pick to increase the ballistic skill to a 2 up. You can increase the move, and then there's another one. Oh, increase your OC as well, I think. Let me double check. But the point being, like, it's super cool, it's super awesome, but because they killed how you can use that stuff, it's tough. And I should mention, you can only select one unit per like command phase to use this
Ooh,
for.
that's not great.
So you like, but you can discard 3 miracle dice and give Battle Sister Squad, Celestin, Sacrosanct, and Paragon Warsuits. You can give them all of that. Like you
That's
can give
I
them
mean that's
+1 to
good.
move. You can give +1 leadership, or you can give +1 weapon skill and ballistic skill for the entire turn.
I mean, in on the surface that's good, but like I know that you can't really like you're not getting the same amount of dice as you were before, so it's just like it's hard to be like because this is like a detachment that you obviously want to use them like every single time, but you're just not getting, or even potentially like
It
multiple, but
needs
you're
an
just not getting
army
them.
of faith esque miracle dice generation, or miracle dice need to not be used to substitute rolls and be used to buff units originally anyway, as it is like with this.
Yeah, it's and I mean the resources in general, and I think this is important to say, but like not every army by the way needs to be like, oh, needs to be a resource army, because I don't
Yes.
think it works for some. But like for sisters, for example, I don't remember what the sisters rule was in 7th. I'll be 100% honest. I don't I played against it like twice, like
Mhm.
if I remember, but like I don't remember it at all.
Mhm.
Um and and I think it's important to know that was obviously something that like they came into it in 8th edition, I think, but it was like very much it was very much like I want to say muted would probably be the best word to say. And
Mhm.
then it got more in ninth, and then it became much more prevalent now in 10th. And I think any army that's like kind of based around resources, like this external mechanic, I think they can be very tricky to balance, because it's like you start trying to think about it, and you would be able to explain this more because you also play Votan, which is another very resource
Resource
heavy
heavy.
like army,
Mhm.
and it's like it's hard to say like maybe are these units like data sheets too good, or is it the resource generation too good? Because I was talking with us. So this local tournament, and I unfortunately wasn't able to go to. I had to like cancel like basically like a week out. I was very sad. But the guy who won it, great guy. His name's Cody. But he won it. He was taking Ultramarines Gladius, right?
Mhm.
And we were talking about it, and he kind of smoked everyone he played against legitimately. And me and him were talking about it, and I play him every so often, and he's very good, but that goes without saying. But we were talking about like what actually makes Ultramarines like so good in the meta right now, and everyone's like it's the +1 to wound, +1 to wound. And yes, obviously that is it. But I asked him, is it more so that the +1 to wound has just taken an army that is already like top end and put it to the area where it's now like probably the best army, debatably the best army in the game?
Mhm.
And he said yes, because beforehand, he said, but that's not the reason why they're the best army in the game. The +1 to wound has really nothing to do with it.
Mhm.
He said they were the best army in the game before, in his opinion, and I
Mhm.
honestly think mine, because of the command point generation. If
Yeah.
you like know from that army, if you run it correctly with Calgar and Gilliman and whatever, you're playing with like he said, like on average, like he's playing with 30 CP and his opponent's playing with 10. And I know Art of War said something about this recently because I watched that video, but I was talking to him about this and he said the same exact thing. And when you have armies, and I think this goes into the whole thing with resources, they're hard to balance, is that if you go into armies that just have way more ability to like do special things, right? You have your data sheets, and each data sheet can be good or bad, but a bad data sheet can be buffed by like a good stratagem or a good ability. And if all of a sudden, like most stratagems in general, like every detachment normally has like one or two that like you're going to be like, okay, these are going to be, I'm going to be using like almost every turn. But now, if you're like, oh, I can use like three of these every turn, and your
Mhm.
opponent's like, I can really only use like one.
Mhm.
Like that's where it starts getting a little ludicrous, and that's where the whole +1 to wound, like as a resource, it's good. It's a tool, and also the double oath doesn't hurt. But like,
Yeah. And also, just another point to mention, like, just how much a single resource can be valuable. A single resource, one world.
yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's like that ability, because that is, I mean, a lot of the custodians, they have resources baked into their data sheets, because the whole thing about that army design we could talk. That could be another episode of what I
Yeah.
think their army design should be. But
Mm-hmm.
Smug does not agree with it. But anyways,
I I
it's not bad. It's actually worse than their current rule. I'm gonna say it right now. So I think their ability should basically be like
oh
you have
no.
to pick pick something to ignore, like in the shooting phase. Like you can ignore like hit modifiers, or you can like ignore cover or AP modifiers. I'm stealing this directly from the Eldar like stratagem and aspect host. And then in the fight phase, you can like ignore damage modifiers or ignore wound modifiers. And arguably that is worse than their current rule. It is like, but anyways, that's just what it that that's a topic for another time.
Another time.
No, but the resources that like the custodians have is the stratagems like kind of suck. I'm not gonna lie. And
Yeah.
basically outside of talons, where you're gonna spam the reactive
Reactive
move
move,
every single turn,
which is also how he won Worlds.
which is also how he won Worlds. Was that and the four feel no pain, which is the
Yeah.
big resource because that's a once per game thing, and
Mm-hmm.
that is an incredibly hard unit to balance, I think. Well, I say that, but you can just like jack up the points to a ridiculous amount.
But that doesn't fix them.
No, it doesn't, but like it's
That's
a way to do it.
yes, and that's what we're getting into with like resources and how to make them better because genuinely sometimes how the rule is just fundamentally needs to change. Like the 4-up feel no pain, it fundamentally needs to change so the rest of the custodies can be fun.
Well, and that goes with like the miracle dice. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about your previous attachment. If miracle dice were not as consistent, like with the Triumph of Saint Catherine, like being able to use 2 miracle dice and every single one counts as a 6 within the
Mm-hmm.
aura,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if that was not as consistent, I bet the penitent host, and I also bet bringers of flame and or not and penitent host, and I bet the new detachment
Mm-hmm.
and even hollowed martyrs, whatever. I bet those playstyles would be more viable if you had better CP generation, or I'm not sorry, not CP, miracle dice generation, but the miracle
Mm-hmm.
dice were not as good. It's too consistent. Is that's their problem? Like
Yes.
I mean,
Yes. That's
those units are expensive for what they are
you
because you can give them ridiculous stuff.
yes. And here's kind of the argument I'm having. I want them to nerf how strong Miracle Dice can be and make it a more plentiful resource so that way they can be more consistent because I want to spam Miracle Dice. I don't want to spam sixes. I want to spam Miracle Dice. And that difference is massive.
I mean, I remember my last game I played against Sisters. I was playing, and this guy's like, "Oh, like," and I was pre-measuring. I'm like doing all this stuff to like make sure like things like can't get within range or whatever. And I was like, "How far does it move?" And he's like, "Oh, it moves this, but I can advance like and whatever." And it just slipped my mind that like because he rolled his first miracle die for his turn or whatever, or his 2 miracle dice, and he rolled like a 2 and like a 4, right? Or and then I'm like, oh, I'm still good because I positioned my guys. It's like he would have had to roll a 6 to like, you know, get in position to shoot. And you could say, well, you shouldn't have even given him that option. Well, and I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely shouldn't have because I totally forgot. It's like, oh, he was in the
Triumph
aura
for
of the
St.
of
Catherine.
St. Catherine. He's like, I'm gonna
Yep.
just flip it to a 6, the 2 to a
Mm-hmm.
6, like bang, immolator's there. I'm
Yep.
like, oh boy, here we go.
Yep.
Like, and it's
Yeah.
just like
There's no fun in that. And it's kind of the point of so another resource. Quite possibly the single strongest resource in the entire game, and I brought it up earlier, call back, the Orc Wa. The reason it's totally fine is because you're able to plan around it happening once. You know it's gonna happen. You know it's gonna be turn 2 or 3, and you know that it's gonna be a thing that like you have to plan for it. It's just a part of the game.
do you think
But
the I was gonna say, do you think it's a buff or a nerf that
got it in
that
their
they made
command
it?
phase.
Yeah,
Um, situational. I've literally heard half the orc players be like, I mean, I got used to it and got really good with predicting the other guy, and then the other half is like, I just want to guarantee my charges.
I think I was gonna say I think I've talked to more orc players that like the change than don't like the change. But I don't know if that's common, to be honest with you.
I think I think orc players not like orc players going second was a big problem. But my point being, for the resource, that is a resource you're able to plan around. It's like it's somewhat interactable. You know it's coming. That's a reason why judgment tokens are a little bit frustrating as somebody who loves them. I'm able to just
You
put them on units and there's nothing people are able to do about it.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I mean, we talked about it when the Grotmist attachment came out.
It's
Like,
so
we
bad.
both immediately said it's not gonna be playable.
We
I
don't get an
mean, it's
army rule.
like, I mean, it's playable, but like, it's not gonna be competitive. Like, there's a difference between like playable and competitive. Like, you
I
can play
actually
pretty much.
disagree with you. I don't
You?
even think
Oh,
it's
wow.
competitive. I don't even think it's playable.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say you thought it was competitive.
No, no, no. I don't
I
even
was
think
like,
it's
oh, here.
playable. Because here's the thing. When you put an army on the table and it has a resource, you want to use it. You
Oh, I mean,
straight up
yeah.
can't
I
use it.
get it. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like this isn't me trying to like Reddit. I know more than you or something. It's like it's straight up just like the fantasy of the army is
pull up your sources,
unusable.
please. I need to double check
I'm on
them.
Wikipedia working 1.4.3
Yeah.
like there the reason that I think they're gonna have to rework Votan's judgment tokens to make it so that way you hand it out to units just as the army rule is because it doesn't work otherwise. If you just don't have an army rule, you're cooked. Or if they bring it back like how they did in ninth, where just at the start of each player's turn, you put down a judgment token, like just one on a single unit, that's also a possibility. But I don't know. Maybe 10 judgment tokens throughout the game is busted. What do I know?
Do you want to hear what I think they should do with Votan?
I actually do.
So, I did not like the way I don't like the way they currently do judgment tokens. I
You just
think
give
that
out
they're
4 maxed at the start.
well, no, it's not that. I just don't actually like the concept of like +1 to hit, +1 to wound.
Mm.
Because then you can't really make units that function without it, if that makes any
Oh
sense.
my gosh. Dude, all right.
Like,
The difference between hitting something that is judged versus isn't is night and day. Bikes are 90 points because if they shoot into something that isn't judged, they do nothing. But if they shoot into something that is judged, they destroy it.
I mean, and that was what I was getting at. It's like I think they should almost have a complete rework of like that entire like the data sheets and everything. Like I think they should be like a ballistic skill 3+ army. I think they should, but I don't think judgment tokens should like be as good. It's like I don't know what you could do with it. Like maybe you could basically make it like every judgment token. Like it might not even get like the 2 judgment token buff. Like you could just make it almost I don't know if this is crazy, but if a unit is judgment tokened, I don't think it would be a crazy thing to be like if we're basically saying the regular ballistic skill is 3+ on the bikes, on the regular guys, everything, the Terminators can stay at, or they can even buff them to 2, whatever. They can
Hmm.
stay at 3, doesn't really matter. Well, probably 3 because Terminators
Terminators
are
are
3.
3 right now.
Yeah, they can stay at 3. But like if you could basically be like, okay, every time like a unit like only one they can only have like one judgment token on a unit, but like every unit that's judgment token, like you just have sustained or lethal and you just pick it when they shoot. It's basically the custodian rule, except there's more hoops to jump through. Because that's what you
Hmm.
do for custodians. Every time they fight in melee, you pick sustained or lethal. Every time you shoot at a judged unit, you either pick sustained or lethal. And you can then have your, the way they get judgment tokens probably be maybe buffed, I don't know, or maybe changed to get more. I'm not sure. But like
Hmm.
I mean, that's basically what the chaos rule is. Like you're every single time you're doing packs and you're giving your units sustained or you're giving them lethal hits. Like every
Yeah.
single time. There's not a situation unless you have like one guy who's like gotta not die kind of
Bro,
thing.
even then
I
chaos
mean,
players are like, I gamble.
if
I
yeah, if you're
gamble.
not doing it, then it's kind of a coward's way out. But like the point is, I kind of think the army would play better if that was the case. I don't know how you feel about that.
I kind of disagree. That +1 to wound is
Well, I
mwah.
mean, yes, but like I'm just saying from like a concept of like, okay, you might not need to like nuke something, but you can just consistently like actually hit them. You
We're
see
gonna
what I mean? Like, and it's like the
you're
open
gonna get me to
moments
start
thing.
talking about the land fort, and neither of us want that.
I mean, but I mean I mean that is one of the glaring issues with the land fort. Am I incorrect to
That
think of
is
that?
the big issue with the land fort.
Like that's the thing. It's like, would you rather take an army rule where it's like, okay, this thing actually hits and like probably wounds, or you're just gonna do like, because right now I feel like Votan's very much like your unit like absolutely smokes something or does nothing.
Yes, and it's entirely dependent on if they're grudged or not.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know if that's like a good mechanic.
It's that's kind of why I'm in the vein of the way that the resource currently works needs updating. Don't get me wrong, +1 to hit, +1 to wound, awesome idea. Like that's really cool. And also the stronger one takes the second judgment token, so that's hard. I also like the idea of somebody earning a greater and greater judge. Like I think grudge, not judge. I think
Judge Dredd.
Judge Dredd. I think people I think that there should be an air quote growing effect. The more effective your unit is, the more my army becomes effective against that unit. I think that's the fundamental usage of judgment tokens is the more effective your unit is, the more effective my army is to that unit.
I mean, you
It
could keep. I'm sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say you could. Well, I'm sorry. I say go ahead, and I'm just gonna continue talking like the asshole I am. But like, it's like you can have the system where you get two judgment tokens. Like if one thing's got one, it's like you pick one or the other, sustained and lethal, or if they got two, you get both. I don't think that's like. I mean, sustained lethal is kind of a wild combo, but I think you have literally no rerolls in your army. Like,
excuse you. Do you not understand what the new detachment does?
absolutely not. I looked at it and I'm like, oh, this is. I saw that you don't get to give 4 units judgment tokens. Like, oh, this is definitely worse. No one's gonna play this. And
Everything
lo
in
and
the
behold,
army rerolls once.
oh boy, here we go.
But don't
Like,
worry, we give up hitting on threes to hit on fours.
I mean, hitting on threes, rerolling ones is actually like super
But we're not
consistent. It's like,
hitting on threes. We're hitting on
yeah, I know.
fours
That's
because we
like
can't
that's
give
not.
grudge
It's not
tokens.
nearly as consistent.
Um, yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's
I
still worse than hitting on threes, just base, just rerolling ones. But you know,
yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the matter. Whenever it comes to resources and the way that 40k is working currently, is it needs a rewrite in the terms of I think orcs have it nailed. I think Tau have it nailed. I think CSM have it nailed.
I think Drukari's got it well as well. I think the pain tokens are good.
I don't have enough experience against them to be able to say
Um,
properly.
so every time they kill a unit, they get a pain token. They don't get pain tokens if they die, but if you can use pain tokens to like re-roll all hits in the shooting phase, like re-roll all wounds in the like fight phase, or like re-roll charges, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And you have like a couple units that can like give extra pain tokens out, or not give
Mm-hmm.
extra pain tokens out,
But
but like you
generate
can
them.
like, yeah, like refund them on like a 4+. I think it's the Talos that does that.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think that's good. I think that's a good mechanic. Like that's not. I mean, even the Eldar one. Well, we'll see. I actually think well, now we haven't actually talked about the Eldar book because no one's played against it or anything like that.
I'm fully in the stance that the Eldar is going to be at top tables like a 63% win rate army, and like at the mid tables like a 38% win rate.
And then it'll end up somewhere like when you combine the two, it's gonna end up like at like 50.
I think it'll be like a 51% win rate
I
on the
actually think it'll be
charts.
lower, but like I think it could be like a 46% win rate army. I think
You,
that
I
army
think yeah,
that
I
book
think
is busted,
it's
but I
busted.
think you have to be really good to get it to abuse it.
The thing
Like,
is too, in order to play the Eldar Codex properly, is you have to look the other guy dead in the eye and tell him, you just shot this unit, and I know that that was your peppering fire. However, I'm now going to move it 9 inches behind cover.
You know, and the thing is, and I mean that Warhost attachment. I don't know if
Ugh.
I told you, like, there's 3 separate ways that a unit can disembark,
Yeah.
fire, and get back into transport, like in the
Yep.
same turn.
The
That's
T9
insane.
minus transhuman for this edition, -1 to wound if strength is greater.
Oh yeah, the
Um,
wave serpent. Also, I don't know if you know this, but like if you do the damage calculations now, assuming like we're just gonna assume the Rogel Thorns don't have Tech Priest Engine Seers
mhm.
with them, giving them the invuln.
Mhm.
But if you have um a 10-man or a fire dragon with oh my god, Fugan? Yeah,
Mhm.
Fugan.
Mhm.
That squad, I think I ran the math on, like, I'm pretty sure I ran the math on this, and it was something like killing, like, very reliably, like
Mhm.
90% of the time, like, you're killing 2 Rogel Dorns. If you gamble, like, you can kill 3. Like, there's potential to kill 3 with 1 unit.
Mhm.
Now, will that ever happen? Like, if you got
Yes.
all your Rogel Dorns in one,
Yes.
I mean, I hope you don't, but like, I mean,
Brother,
it could.
look, I think it's gonna happen the first game of the tournament, and I'm gonna hear some guard player flip a table because his brand new codex just got stomped on by the even more brand new codex. Codex creep is back.
Oh, dude, thank the Lord. All
I'm
right.
so glad.
I
I'm
actually don't mind it. I mean, it's not that egregious. They seem to be much faster and like bringing things in line. So,
Yeah, they're bringing the Nerf hammer back pretty quickly. It's not ninth edition Tyranids.
ooh, boy. Oh, dude. Ninth edition Jukari as well. They were
Ooh.
very good for a thick city build. Was
Oh,
hilarious.
it was bad.
It was so annoying.
But that's I think the fix for sisters is to make it so that way Miracle Dice is something you can use on an individual datasheet level to increase the power of individual datasheets. Like I gave the Retributors as an example, and your example also works. Like I
Well,
want a
yeah,
lot of Miracle Dice to just be a quality of life improvement,
well, I
not
think you need both.
I. What do you mean?
I think you need both systems. I mean, I think that's what you were. I don't know if that's what you were saying. I may have misheard you, but like you need both systems of like you need to be able to. And I think this is just for more of a fun aspect. Like you roll the dice, you can use the dice in the shoot phase, like for specifically things, or in the fight phase for specifically things.
Mm-hmm.
But then each, like you said, each sister's actual data sheet, you can use them to like buff them for this one time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that system is probably need it, and then you get a lot of them, but then the buffs aren't that strong. Like that's
Like,
fine.
okay, here's the thing. We were just saying lethals and sustained are super strong. It's only on power swords.
Yeah,
Like
you're
that's
not firing lethal sustain like well they kind of got rid of that, but like the lethal sustained like hell blasters.
yeah.
Oh man.
Like it's it has to be representative of the unit. And that's why I want to get rid of the auto sixes because the retributors, they're still just meltas. They are still like yeah, you're re-rolling meltas, still fives. Like
What about
for
your
any
I was gonna say, what do you, I mean, definitely, I can tell you what the Battle Sisters ability should be. Spend
yeah,
Miracle Dice, Holy Trinity, and you get to +1 to wound with Bolters, Flamers, and Meltas if you fire all at
perfect.
the same target. I mean,
Yeah,
that was an old strat in ninth. I know that was a
I
strat in ninth.
the Holy Trinity. Yes. Like that is awesome. I love that idea. I think more involved doesn't really need to change. I think like it's just then also because if somebody's like, "Oh man, I really want this one unit and their special ability to be awesome. Like I want Rapincha to get extra AP on the charge with the miracle dice." Bam. You can make it happen.
It's just, and I think it actually, when you have abilities that are not, when they're not as powerful, but they're more plentiful, I think that's an easier way to fix it.
Yes.
Because then you can just like start reducing. Because right now, I mean, the abilities is too powerful and there's too much. And it's like, okay, well, what are you going to nerf? Are you going to nerf the power of the ability, or are you going to nerf the like the generation of the ability? And it's like if you have a bunch of nerfs that like aren't good, and it's more of like the sum of their parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the sum of their parts is great, or the sum of their parts is greater than the whole, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, or the individual. I don't remember exactly how that quote goes, but like,
Editor, put the quote up.
yeah, whatever it is. You can kind of like scale back, like, okay, maybe like they shouldn't have 30 miracle dice a game. They can have like 25. And it's
Yeah.
like you can start like scaling it back like easier. But being able to flip sixes into meltas, it's like into full damage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh, and your opponent, you can make them AP5 ignore cover. It's like, all right. So,
Yeah.
like
AP5, ignore cover, automatically make them sixes as well, because why not? So take 8 damage per shot because I feel like it.
yeah, and God forbid you like hit and wound just like you're rolling, because obviously what you do is you roll like 3 of them if you got like 4 hits, and it's like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
well the 6 I'm gonna guarantee this hit here,
Mm-hmm.
and then like or this wound here or whatever, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
like, God forbid you get like 2 regular wounds that are unsavable, and it's like, oh, guess what? Bang, 16 damage. Like goodbye
Yeah.
repulsor.
Yeah.
Like it's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like how many points was that? Like, was that Retributor Squad that you just shot? Oh, 120. It's like, oh, okay.
125 points. Yeah.
So you just killed my
120.
Land Raider.
Like, yeah. I fully agree with that sentiment. And it's just whenever it comes to the resources and the way that they're handled in the game, it's done really, really well in some cases. Tau, CSM, like all of them. It's done really, really bad in some cases. Tyranids. And
What are their resources? Oh, never mind.
Shadow in the Warp.
Oh yeah, that's not a great.
That's Battle Shock. That's Battle Shock.
We could
That's
do
a whole nother
nother
episode.
video about what I think it should be.
I,
I think it should be like it's sort of like the Demon's Rule.
I
But-
think it should be once per battle round you pick a unit to fail. Like, I think you just pick one unit.
That's how they got the Sisters Detachment and Custodians to win, because they have I believe it's a strat
automatically fail.
where you can automatically fail.
No save, which is, if you're gonna
It's
make it an
infuriating.
army rule, it needs to be more than -2. Anyway, it's the same issue with the GSC. It's a rolling army rule that feels awful.
I don't have a fix for GSC. I don't know them well enough.
GSC got their fix. They made it so that way their
Oh.
infantry has point value, like
Oh yeah,
revive
no,
values.
you just come back. Yeah, that's way better.
It's
That's
infinitely
so
better.
much better.
It's an army rule that you get to use, like, that isn't out of your control.
And
That's
also
perfect.
And really at the end of the day, I mean, the reason why the army rule for Sisters, like Miracle Dice, and that's why Fate Dice were so strong, is that there are some people who don't believe this, but it feels bad.
It is.
It's a big feels bad for your opponent, because
It
it's
is.
like if they roll hot,
On
nothing
Miracle
you can
Dice?
do. On
Yeah.
if you know, it's like, let's say me and you are playing. I'm playing like Blood Angels, and you're playing Votan. It's like, okay, you roll your disco like Sagittars. It's like, bang, guess what? This one dude 6 hits. It's like, okay, like I mean,
Yeah.
you just rolled. You know what I mean? It's just dice, right?
Yeah.
But if it's like, oh, guess what? This one rail cannon that hit, it's like, I'm going to automatically like skip your save, make it dev wounds, and you're gonna take like 12 damage. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
D6
all right.
plus 6. Let's stack this up. Let's be done here.
Yeah,
like-
and
Whenever you take the aspect of dice rolling, it now becomes the person, not the game.
it does. It weirdly becomes personal.
Like, bro, I remember, dude, I was staring at this guy, and he's like, I'm gonna use this 4 on Morin Vol. And I'm looking at him, and it's a 1 damage grenade. And it's just like, you failed 1? You're using it? He's like, yeah.
It's
I had a
funny.
vendetta against that man at Nova. I won. And I killed Morin Vol in Overwatch because she used that
There you
4
go.
earlier. But I just, there are...
Any system that's just feels bad for your opponent is just something that you try to minimize. I
Yes.
feel, because I mean, you just said GSC earlier, like that was a massive
That
feels
was-
bad.
for the
For both-
player that was
either
taking
player.
them. Yeah, because you couldn't plan around them coming back. Because unless you were playing the Orc Horde, and you can literally just take up the entire board, you can't stop GSC from coming back. And there's no joy in that. There's no fun.
We have a friend of ours named Peter, and he plays.
We're just name dropping him?
sure.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Is he ever going to be on? Who knows? But like we have a friend, and he plays GSC, And like I know he's played games because he's complained about it where
Yeah.
he just like makes every roll for the reinforcement before they change the rule, just nothing came back. It's like, what am
Mhm.
I supposed to do?
Mhm.
And then he's had games where it's like everything came back, and it's like, what is your opponent supposed to do?
Yep.
And it's just it wasn't very good. I actually like the fix now. I mean, I actually said like from the beginning, I'm like, I don't know why it's not just like you
Uh,
guarantee X amount of battle line and like one other unit comes back for free. Like,
and
I think the
plus
point's
they
fine.
also they were so smart with it. They balanced it so that way if a certain unit coming back is too strong, they can just increase the value of that to make it not as valuable for it to come back.
Hey, I mean,
They
there's
were
certainly
smart with
ways,
it. They were smart with the rework. Now I'm
dude.
expecting like that's the thing. The balanced team is simultaneously the dumbest and the smartest at the like exact same time, and it's so aggravating.
So, what do you think? So, real quick, talking about balancing stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
How fast do you think they're going to nerf that? I mean, it's going to be the next 3 months, right? Like, there,
I think
it's going
Eldar
to
is
be
going to get an
fast.
FAQ. I think end of February they're going to get an FAQ.
Oh, you think it's going to be like you? Do you think? I don't think they're not as good as they were at the beginning of 10th. That was
No. They
outrageous.
are not going to rewrite the game's rules specifically for Eldar.
No, they're not that good, but
Again.
I could see a world where it's like, hey, guess what? I would not be surprised even if they had a day one FAQ because they're going to hear like all the. Well, no, it's
I
already out, right?
already know there's an FAQ in the work for Eldar.
Yeah, because like I'm sorry, but Azerman like getting out, getting in a transport, like you got fire warriors get or fire dragons like getting out, getting in a transport. You can do that with 2 squads of fire dragons, and it's
Mhm.
just like, dude, what? Like, like you can't have that. You can't have a detachment where it's just like, oh, guess what?
Mhm.
Like these 3 units that just killed like 3 important things potentially. Guess
Mhm.
what? Like if you're a single phase damage army, you're not killing them, and then they're gonna kill 3 more important things.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like, okay, all right,
Mhm.
that's cool.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know what it's gonna be, honestly. I feel like they just have to nerf the strats. I don't actually think the army rule is like
I
broken.
think the army rule is cool.
I think it's cool. I think it's like if you know how to use it, I think it'll be very good. If you don't know how to use it, it won't be very good. It won't
I
be good.
think there needs to be adjustments to the army rule. Like I think D6 plus 1 on all of it is a bit much. I think it should be D3, but
Don't worry, it's actually D6 plus 2 in Warhost. That's
oh
part of
god.
it. They get +1 for like everything in that
Why am
detachment,
I
and they
going
get
to
extra.
Cherokee?
They get
Why
extra dice. They get
I'm
6
just
instead of 4 tokens. It's
I'm going to
wild.
Cherokee just to gamble. I'm gambling to see how long until I play against Eldar and then lose money at blackjack.
And then just
Like
get smoked like 100-0.
literally.
10 for
Yeah.
10 for what, battle ready.
10 for battle ready.
Yeah. I
But
won't be surprised. I like I said, I think that those units though are so fragile.
yeah,
I mean, they are so fragile.
they
Like
are
I won't
so
be
fragile.
surprised.
Except for the transport for
So I
some
mean,
reason.
that transport's weirdly tanky.
Yeah,
The
transhuman
the
on a
wave
transport is
the wave
crazy.
serpent is weird. I mean, it's a 3-up save, but
Hmm.
like permanent basically being wounded on 4s. Like, I guess the way you get around it is you oath it, and then it's like
But then
then
it's
you can move
still
back on
just
3s. But
normal instead of the buff. Like, I, as a Votan player, I'm crying.
well, you obviously just don't have as good as technology, so I don't know why you're complaining.
You're so true, Bestie. I only have the Dark Age. Like, the entire library of the Dark Age in my back pocket.
Dude, I will say Eldar like was if we're gonna get lore real quick, they actually did have some banging technology like way in the past, but they're basically someone described it to me recently because someone's like with this, when the whole Eldar Codex came out, they said this is how they should be. They should be pretty much overpowered in the setting for what their technology is. And someone said no, they shouldn't. This was another Eldar player. It was two. This is one of the most interesting things I've ever seen. I saw
Nerd
two Eldar.
off!
Yeah, I saw two nerd Eldar players arguing with each other about how powerful they should be. And by the way, I'm trying to start an Eldar army because I love the Wraith constructs because, dude, they just look so sweet. So I'm soon probably going to be joining them, but
It's the only
not because
Xenos
of the
I could talk
codex.
him
I
into.
liked it beforehand, but like I've been thinking about this for a while. But they were saying like he's like, dude, do you like know what happened to them? Like, and I've never had this described to him. He's like, they basically experienced an apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's exactly what happened. And it's like, how do they not retain their technology? It's like, dude, like 95% of all their people died.
Yeah.
And it's like, was your neighbor was he a rocket scientist? Because if he wasn't, then like you're
That
just not gonna
knowledge
know how
was
to do that
lost.
stuff anymore.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if people how common this information is, but have you ever heard of the idea of the Great Filter for like becoming a spacefaring species?
No. I know
So
like the whole weirdo like the whole like species ranking system thing. I forgot what it's called, but it's like are you like a number one species or like a two species like you just
mhm.
discovered like space whatever. I forgot
Yes,
what it is.
yeah. This is kind of similar. The Great Filtering is the sense of you as a species have a specific point where you will reach your maximum like potential. Like this is as good as you'll ever get because you'll either consume yourself, you'll consume too much and then just like starve to death, or the galaxy itself will collapse in on you. And that's called the Great Filter for that species. It's mainly in regards to humans because, we have a habit of digging too deep, I suppose, is the correct analogy here.
I
But
mean, the dwarves of Moria dug too deep.
the
So
dwarves. Eldar got filtered. They literally like it wasn't
Shadow
I
Dwarf
guess it
filter.
was technically due to natural causes. It was their fault.
I mean
Like,
natural causes.
I
That's an
brother
interesting way
I mean the
saying
warp is
that.
about as natural as it gets, you know?
I mean,
There's
yeah,
nothing more primordial than that.
I would not say the Necrons cause was natural causes.
Necrons
That's for certain.
Dude, Necron shook the devil's hand and then put a handcuff on it and just said, "We're going together."
Pretty much. Like it's pretty. I mean, that whole lore is pretty wild. And
Yeah. Oh, another thing. Necron resources. They changed Hypercrypt and they made them less things could uppy downy because it was too strong for
don't
Necrons.
worry, Star Shatter. It's actually. I
Star
actually think
Shatter
it's.
also got ripped in half.
I think it's good still. I mean, I know it's good
Oh, it's
still, but
still
like,
good, but
it's
now
not
it's
like.
not free.
Yeah, I mean, even before, I don't know if it was free because that army, like, if you build a Star Shatter list the way that you want, like the way that like they want you to, based on the detachment like abilities, they're like, oh, dude, you take every Doomsday arc and every big thing. It's like you're just not going to score primary because like those
The
things are
Silent
so
King.
low. See, yeah, but it's whatever. But yeah, I mean, literally, if you actually you mentioned the Great Field.
But like every single faction I feel like in Warhammer currently has done that, except Tau and Orcs, ironically. No, actually, no, the Orcs definitely hit their peak. If you're referring to the Cork, it's literally they devolved because they got bored. But Gaz is a Cork again. No, he's not, dude. You've never read War of the Beast. By the way, don't ever read that book because it is like one of the most it's one of the worst written like actual. Okay, sorry, this is getting so off topic because we're about to talk about Warhammer books. Sorry, they're like I mean I don't know how you feel about it, but like they're like pretty. I would not say they're like fantastic. I would say they're very fun if you like Warhammer. But I would not be like, oh, dude, this book is like needs to be like win a Pulitzer. There is one exception to that, and it's the Infinite and the Divine. But that's because the premise of that book, everybody here is going to get it. The way that I pitch it to my friends is a time traveler a time traveler and a necromancer who revives himself are constantly pitted against each other out of pettiness. Oh, it's pretty funny. It's delightful. But like most of those books, like War of the Beast, by the way, that's like there is a like the whole beast is a court. And he like beats the shit out of Vulcan. Really? Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. Well, I might have just been like
Into thinking that Gazgul was a Cork.
No, he's on his like he's much closer to like what
He's
they
the
are.
closest current living orc on the way to
Yeah,
being
but
a
he's
Cork.
not like. But the Quarks were like Primarchs almost,
Oh, wow.
and there was like a bunch of them. I mean, it was
Okay.
like orcs, but they were all Primarchs. But that this is getting way off topic into like
Yeah,
the war.
yeah.
Like
We don't
if
care
you
about.
guys don't,
This is about
yeah,
resources.
I know. Well, we'll talk about resources. I mean, the resources the Necrons had back then. Like, if you want to ever talk about shit that was like wildly powerful, like Necrons War in Heavens was probably power level like peak in 40k.
Yeah.
Like they would
Yeah.
smoke the nids right now. They would. I mean, to be honest, I mean they would smoke everything in the setting. But
I mean, everything's gonna
remember the
smoke in
Corks
this.
would.
Yeah, like everything smokes everything in the setting if it was at their peak. Like if the Imperium of Man was still in the Great Crusade, they'd smite the
Dark Age
Necrons.
of technology. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Like everybody's better than everybody except for
Don't
the
worry,
Tau.
the Tau haven't hit their peak yet.
Yep,
so
except for the
wait till-
Tau.
just wait till they. Just you guys wait. They're gonna be good, I promise.
Genocide. Anyway,
Dude, they are big fans of. They are big fans of. Well, I wouldn't say genocide, but like, I don't. Selective. No, eugenics. That's the word I'm looking for.
there you go.
They are a big fan of eugenics.
It's 40k. Eugenics is like a.
That's like
It's the carrot on top.
Kind of. Anyways,
Go ahead, Commissar. Tell me, what did you do to the ratlings?
Anyways, if you're ever playing Tau, guys, if you want to talk about resources to wrap it all up, kill their stealth suits. The army becomes wildly less efficient.
Yeah. So I think we'll end it there, you know? Telling Tau players to kill themselves seems like an apt way to end.
Yeah, kill the Tau stealth suits, and you're gonna have a much easier time against those broadsides.
This channel's getting shut down. Yeah. All right, well, thank you everybody. We'll see you same time probably next month.
Hopefully we be better than that.
We're working on an upload schedule.
We're working on it. It'll get more consistent.
Yeah. All right, but after Cherokee it gets easier. But
have a good one.
For now everybody. Till next time.